Welcome to CW 4.6. Today we're going to cover inequalities. So the first thing you want to note is for all these things, you need to have your expression, and it has to be greater than or less than 0. So take some time and really highlight this fact, because this, I can't really emphasize enough like how important that 0 is going to be. So I'll take a moment and highlight that for yourself. Super important. So look here. We clearly don't have the 0, so we're going to manipulate it. 2x squared plus x minus 15 is greater than 0. Once you're here, you're going to factor. So 2x minus 5x plus 3. And then we have our zeros. Our zeros are going to be 5 over 2, negative 3. Notice how I'm not writing x here, I'm writing z. And again, the z is going to stand for zeros, because that's what I care about. I'm going to show you two methods today, and both are important to understand. Method 1 is going to be graphing. This is my preferred method because graphing these isn't too difficult. And you can actually do a shorthand graph where I'm only going to draw the x-axis right here. I'm going to plot the zeros, so I have negative 3, and I have 5 over 2. And I'm going to use the fact that this is 2x squared, so the leading term is 2x squared, which means my end behavior is up and up. And I know that's a parabola, so I just sketch a parabola. Those are the zeros. Let's just draw a graph. And I can use my graph to answer this. Take a look right here. That says greater than 0, which means I'm looking for where the graph is greater than 0. So that's going to be this region and this region, because that's where the graph is above the axis, which means the answer is going to be negative infinity to negative 3 union 5 over 2 to infinity. That's method 1. Now method 2 is going to be a sign chart. And this is a really good method. It's really helpful when you get to calculus, and you're going to have to know both of them anyway. So definitely write this down. It starts off pretty similarly, except this is a number line. And what we're going to do is drop dotted lines from these right here. So what we're doing is we're separating the number line into 3 regions. Region 1, region 2, region 3. We're going to make a column of the factors now. So the two factors I had were 2x minus 5 and x plus 3. And then you're going to add one more row. I call it the therefore row. What you're going to do is pick a number less than negative 3. So let's say you pick like negative 10. Plug it in here and think about if the outcome is positive or negative. In this case, it would be negative, because that'd be negative 20 minus 5 is negative 25, so definitely negative. Plug in negative 10 here, the outcome is negative. Multiply it together, and your outcome, your therefore, is positive. And you're multiplying it because that's what the problem says to do here. This times this thing. So now pick a number between negative 3 and 5 or 2. 0 is probably good. Plug it in, and you can see the outcome is negative positive. Therefore, multiply it, it's negative. And over here, pick a number greater than 5 or 2, like 10. Plug it in, and notice how they're both positive. Therefore, positive. Now look back at what we did over here. We're looking for where it's greater than 0, which means we want the positive answers. And notice how we get the exact same thing. Okay, let's try an example here. Let's do the same thing. 4x squared plus 2x minus 1. That would be less than or equal to 0. Now, you'll quickly notice that if you try to factor it, this is not going to work, right? This is not factorable, which means to get the zeros, we got to do the quadratic formula. So opposite b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times negative 4 all over 2 times 4, which is 8. So x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of, this would be 20 all over 8. Let's reduce root of 20. That'd be 2 root 5. And now we can break that down. This would be negative 1 plus or minus root 5 over 4. So those are my zeros. So notice how this is a little bit harder than the one we just did, because these were so clean. These are not clean, which means if you want to try to do this number line method, or the sign chart, it'd be pretty hard because you have to figure out what number this would actually be. In a situation like this, you definitely want to graph, because graphing is actually pretty easy, because you don't really care what the exact value would be, but we know that the left 0 is smaller, so this one got to be negative 1 minus root 5 over 4, and this got to be negative 1 plus root 5 over 4. And now the graph, we can see it's a positive parabola, so just draw a positive parabola like that, and highlight that's less than 0, so I want this region right here, because that's going to be below the x-axis, and there it is. Bracket negative 1 minus root 5 over 4, negative 1 plus root 5 over 4. And notice I'm putting brackets. That's because it says inclusive right there. Now here's our final question. We're going to zero it out. X cubed plus x squared minus 4x minus 4 less than or equal to 0. We're going to group factor this thing. X squared, x plus 1 minus 4, x plus 1. Let's keep factoring. This would be x squared minus 4. And there it is. So at this point, we could definitely do a sign chart. But notice how my zeros are really clean. Negative 1, negative 2, 2. So a sign chart would definitely take the longest. So I'm going to say let's graph it, because graphing should be pretty fast. The leading term is x cubed, which means my end behavior is down and up. And all the multiplicities here are 1, which is convenient. So let's just sketch the x-axis right here. And I'm going to put my zeros, negative 2, negative 1, and 2. And let's draw it. There's our end behavior. It's going to go through negative 2, through negative 1, through 2. We're looking for where it's less than 0. So I'm going to highlight this region and that region. So my answer must be negative infinity to negative 2, bracket, union, negative 1 to 2, bracket. And again, you could make a sign chart, but I think for this one, graphing might be a little bit easier. But of course, you could make a sign chart if you wanted to. It's just going to be a little bit longer. It would look something like this. Negative 2, negative 1, 2, dot, dot, dot. And then your 3 factors, x plus 2, x minus 2. So that'd be perfectly fine. You get the same exact thing. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. Okay, so that's it. Let me know if you have any questions.